I would like to call the Village of Lansing Board of Zoning Appeals meeting to order. It's Tuesday, April 19th at 7 o'clock. And we do have a quorum. And I believe that, do we want to do privilege of the floor? I've done this in a long time. There's nobody here to speak on anything that isn't already on the agenda, so I think I'll dispense with that.
Okay.
We're here for a public hearing, to open a public hearing to consider Kevin Sullivan, who's the owner and operator of Catering by Luna, who's requesting a use variance for the property located at 1638 East Shore Drive, parcel number 42.1-1-28.1. The original low traffic and food and beverage use for this parcel was a non-conforming use in the low density residential district, but was allowed as per Village Code section 145-65. Since then, the former owner discontinued the use for longer than 12 months. That was a requirement in the Village Code 145-65D. Therefore, requiring the parcel use to conform with the LDR district regulations. The following is the appeal request for a use variance for a low traffic food and beverage in a low density residential district. So I think what we need to do, first of all, is open the public hearing. Could I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll move that you open the public
Is there a
hearing.
second? Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So the public hearing is now open.
Did Mike vote?
He can't.
Oh, yeah.
He has to be here in person to vote. But, so I believe at this point, we should hear from from Kevin, a description of the project and what you're asking for. You're certainly welcome to sit there if you like, or
You can
you
right
have to stay at the podium. All right,
at the podium and I'll go ahead.
that's a podium.
Put you up there.
Everybody.
Oh,
So really out of the camera here. I appreciate you coming down today and taking the time. I think everybody's familiar with the property. I know I have been. I've been driving by it for pretty much my whole life. I was too young to go to some of the dining experiences there, but I remember the most recent one, Booker's, at the restaurant space there. And it's kind of a unique situation. This property was kind of converted into a catering facility back in between 2018 and 2019, opened as such with H&J Hospitality. They ran into some financial problems with a business they had down in Florida, which resulted in the closure of their catering business up here. When they closed down, my catering business kind of took a nice little jump, and we started to grow. As I understand it, the property was under contract in bankruptcy just before COVID. Obviously, they weren't able to close because they lost their financing, which has created this extended closure there. We found out as we were exploring the purchase of the property for a similar use, using it as a commissary kitchen for my existing restaurants, catering facility for our offsite catering business, as well as a potential space to host events as well. We ran into the use problem because of the extended closure. So as far as what we'd actually like to do there, we anticipate hosting some events with that facility, but that won't be the primary use. Typically, events and rentals for anything from a small business gathering to a wedding would be used primarily on weekends. So typically in the summer season. So we'd be looking at primarily a seasonal use in that way. We do operate our commissary catering kitchen year round. Currently, we're using some of the restaurant kitchens, which is super inconvenient. So we're looking for a dedicated facility to call home for a really long time and continue to be able to grow that business. The catering side of our business represents offsite revenue right now. I think our expectation this year is bordering around $1 million, which would be good tax revenue for the Village of Lansing, as well as opportunity to grow with being able to host events at that facility. Also gives us some scalability because we'll have a facility that's dedicated to that. As far as changes to the premises, we don't really anticipate anything. It needs some love. But it was recently renovated. The property was all landscaped. I'm not a fan of some of the styling necessarily, but we don't have any major changes planned initially. As far as code goes, and Mike and I had a brief conversation about that, but the facility was brought up to all current building codes and is in appearing seemingly excellent condition, other than some carpets that might need a little refreshing or replacement. As far as the property itself goes, it's split into two different lots, one in the town, which is essentially unused, down on this side past the pond. And then the front facing lot, which is the village, which we would actually use for this purpose, is all there with roadside frontage and parking for approximately 48 cars, including the gravel area that's unmarked. George and I have discussed the parking side of things, and typically we do events at facilities all over the place. When we run into say, for example, we have 150 guests coming. Typically at those type of events, people are drinking alcohol. So we require a transportation plan. So if we were looking at a potential parking issue, we would require a transportation plan with that party that was booking to make sure that a bus was available or some kind of transportation to a local hotel, which is all around just a really good idea anyway, because when people are consuming alcohol at a festivity, we try to make sure they get home safe. So as far as other concerns on the property, we didn't really run into too much because the existing use was there. It's pretty much turnkey for us. You have anything else, George?
Yeah, a couple of things. When it was H&J, they obviously did a number of things to make it more of a event center and more private. So they added this fence that runs all along down here, that white vinyl fence. So basic. Now,
hey, excuse me. If you don't mind, could you take over at the podium so I can see the thing? Awesome. That's perfect. Thank you.
So he added this white vinyl fence that enclosed the backyard. They added there's a couple of fire pits which aren't shown that are there. They also did a covered deck. So there was a patio that came out the back of the restaurant, but there's now a covered deck that has survived the winter. The canvas is still up. So, but I know when it became Dempsey's after it was the Golden Garter, I moved into Ithaca in '86. So I remember it as the Golden Garter, then Dempsey's. Ben Curtis made John Dempsey upgrade the kitchen hood and a lot of things that were really old. So things over time got upgraded. Then when Booker's came in, it got further upgraded. Some of the handicap issues, accessibility issues got addressed further. So at this point, the space has been converted over the last 10 or 15 years into an event center with a good kitchen that meets code. So it'd be a shame to just bulldoze all that because it can't be done.
What's the square footage of the building itself?
I think it's about 4,000.
Something like, yeah.
And it's all sort of broken up inside to various offices and.
That would be one of our uses of the space was our existing catering team. I saw them working on a bar top earlier today. They're displaced for most of the year. So there's an office suite there that they would use on a daily basis, occasional meeting with clients, things like that. Then there's a kitchen space, and then the rest of it is front of house for guests.
So between dining and a bar. But it's a continuation of something that's been there. And Lake Watch, the old North 40 barn still stays, sporadically hosting events.
Yeah, just because of COVID, probably. I mean, they had been many events there. That's a really nice place.
Right. But they don't, it's not like it used to be where it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Friday, Saturday night. It was every sheriff in town was there because.
Well, and there were so many accidents at the bottom of the hill on East River Drive. It's
Racing down.
morning after
Drinking all night, be racing down Lower or East Shore Drive, so.
I know a few people from Lansing have asked me and encouraged me to do more than that there, to have regular hours, things like that. It's something that we would certainly consider. It's not our immediate use or planned use, but if there was demand there and we had open availability, for a night, something we would certainly consider doing is bringing the local community in for a special event, obviously to the scale of the facility and something that would engage people.
That's, yeah, obviously that's down the road a ways. So I think what we need to do now is,
You can review if you'd like unless, I mean, if any of these guys have any questions or, I mean, I've got one question.
Mike has a question.
Yeah, if I could ask something, and I guess this is more to the BZA members than anything. I know previously, a year or two ago, the planning board was talking about changing the speed limit on that road and having a parking lot across the street that was shared between the two catering companies there. Is there anything happening with that? Is that something that's like in motion now, or is that just stopped with COVID entirely?
It's 45 right now, isn't it?
No, it's 55.
It's 55. You go up,
Yeah.
you go up and make the corner and start going up by the,
Right at Water Wagon is where,
yeah, Water Wagon is where it changes over.
and it goes into the town there. And so they've dropped the
Right.
speed limit, and we've been asked, to petition the state to drop it to 45 the rest of the way so that it's all 45, but I don't know what.
I don't know. And when it was H&E,
Sure.
the parcel on the east side of was theirs, and now that's been sold, right?
That was sold. Yep.
Yeah, but that was where they were using it for parking their catering vans. Don't
Do
see,
either one of you know when the last event was held there?
And Jamie wrapped up the business because I saw him a week before he left town, and that was it was in November 2019.
would there have to have been an event or just the fact that it was occupied and they were working there?
It expresses that it has to be some type of event there. Let me find out exactly what the wording is.
I have a few questions.
Yes,
If the
please.
BZA doesn't have any
Yeah,
questions.
go right ahead.
You're currently under contract to buy the property, right?
Yep, it's we're under a loan sale agreement, so contingent on an approval from the board.
And it's been foreclosed, so you're buying from the bank?
Yeah, it's on the call, he'll be mad if I get it wrong, but it's a loan sale in lieu of foreclosure.
Got it,
I'm buying the mortgage.
got it, understood. Is Nate the current owner?
Nate is my attorney, and he is on, or he was.
Okay, it's on, okay. Do we have anything from the current owner as to support for this application?
No,
Well,
maybe they can chime in.
well, because the existing owner is in bankruptcy in Florida, the property is actually under the control of the trust, a U.S. bankruptcy trustee who is, functionally owns, the membership interest in the corporation that owns the property.
Do we have anything from the bankruptcy trustee?
The bankruptcy trustee is in support of selling the property, and they've been trying to market the property for many years at this point, unsuccessfully, until Kevin has stepped up. And so the belief is that if this is not approved, they're going to have to go back to the drawing board in terms of what to do next.
But my question is, have they submitted anything to the BZA in writing?
No.
Can I ask about the financial summary you guys provided? Was that for the as a farmer's market or as your catering business?
That's as a farmer's market, Mike.
Gotcha.
Moving to the financial summary, where did the estimated numbers come from?
It's just, I don't know much about running a farmer's market, so I did my best to estimate what I believe could be sold up there, keeping hours that would be normal with traditional farmer's market. So that would be effectively, vendors coming and selling there, collecting fees for it, et cetera.
And this property is zoned as low density residential. So technically we are supposed to take into account all possible other uses of the property within that zone, not just a farmer's market in the application.
Okay.
So, I'll leave it to the board to decide what they want to do, but I think some additional information might be required. At least for the reasonable return portion.
So you would have to look at what it would bring as a residential property.
Yep, any other allowed uses. And then if a property can't be used for any of the allowed uses and earn a reasonable return, then the variance can be offered, but you can't just look for the best possible return.
Can I ask what some examples of other uses would be?
Sure, there's your general, or for your permitted with special permit. Well, obviously, your uses that do not require a special permit are going to be your 1 unit residential, your 2 unit residential. And then you have your permitted with special permit, you have religious facilities, schools, outdoor recreation and club. And then in additional conditions for other special permits would be a home occupation, commercial crop and animal, assisted living facility, and a special care facility.
And I'll just remind the board for use variances you need to pass all 4 tests. It's not like an area variance where it's a balancing test.
And do we have those? in the documents?
These 4.
Yep, I have it.
I'll get just a little background on the mention of the farmer's market. I'm not sure, is that something you plan on having there, or it was one in the past?
As I understood it, John, that is the use of the approved use of the property. I wasn't actually aware of all of those different uses that I had to provide financial analysis for all the different, sounds like about a dozen different uses. Sounds complex, but I mean, no matter what, the reality is with the price of the purchase price of the property at effectively $300,000 plus any kind of knockdown cost. I don't know about a hospital. I think it was a hospital there. There's a school. I don't know much about the financials of building a school or what the village would look like for that, but that's something that would be beyond me to prove reasonably, I think.
Thank you.
Or accurately.
Yeah, let me read straight from the decision that you have to adequately investigate the possibility of other allowed uses. So not necessarily all possible uses, but some other allowable uses. So I think just beyond a farmer's market, that's usually probably the easiest. The 4 factors, to read them off for the board. Under applicable zoning regulations, the applicant cannot obtain a reasonable economic return as determined in the sole discretion of the Board of Zoning Appeals from the property in question, which insufficient return must be established by competent financial evidence satisfactory to the board. 2, the alleged hardship relating to the property in question is unique and does not apply to a substantial portion of the district or neighborhood. 3, the requested use variance, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. And 4, the alleged hardship has not been self-created. So I think it might just behoove the board to go through them one by one, and we can see if we need more information
Shall I do
or
that?
have any questions. So
Do you have questions right now?
I have no other questions. The only one I have, and I probably should know the answer, the grandfather clause is gone forever, or are we reinstating it?
No, that what if it doesn't meet any of the criteria in for it to discontinue, then it can't be reestablished as a grandfather. It would need a variance at that point.
So that's where we are now, is that what kept it grandfathered in, sunsetted when in 2019.
What actually, not so much what kept it in, but what actually took it out of being grandfathered was 145-65D, which is when a non-conforming use or structure, a lot or structure, a lot in combination is discontinued or abandoned for 12 consecutive months. The structure, lot, or structured use and lot combination must not therefore be used except in conformance with the regulation of the district in which it is located. So because it was discontinued for 12 months, it ends up losing that grandfather.
So it reverts to low density residential.
versus the underlying district, which is low density residential.
Right.
So
Do
then,
we have info on why use variance was previously granted?
There wasn't one previously granted. It was just grandfathered in because it was pre-existing
Before
to
the
the
building.
zoning laws.
Mhm.
Gotcha,
had,
thank you.
and had that other deal gone through, it may have still be continued. But because of COVID and stuff, it
There's no.
Nobody in their right mind has been opening up a catering facility or a restaurant.
Right. Well, then what we have before us are these four tests, these four questions. Under applicable zoning regulations, the applicant cannot obtain a reasonable economic return as determined in the sole discretion of the Board of Zoning Appeals from the property in question, which insufficient return must be established by competent financial evidence satisfactory to the Board of Zoning Appeals. So can you kind of put that in simple language?
Yes, so you have to show that of the uses that are permitted, those uses will not have a reasonable return, and that the use being requested will have a reasonable return.
So I guess that's what we're asking is evidence that what you want to do will be a better return than if it reverted to
Low density.
low density residential. After all,
And
for that building, yeah.
it seems like an argument in favor of saying that in favor of this test would be that the building and the kitchen is already turnkey as is. And just the cost of retooling things would be substantial on top of everything else. Like, not saying that it couldn't make a return, but that does at least seem to speak in favor of passing that test.
that was gonna be, what I was going to say is that you have something that's previously built exactly what he wants. If it was going to be a house, you're basically buying a lot for 300,000 and tearing it down
Tearing down everything.
and putting something in that has no financial return other than it's your house. So that doesn't make sense. You get into assisted living facility. Once again, you're buying a lot, you're going to tear down what's there. The septic system that's there is not going to work. You're probably going to be fighting back and forth between two municipalities because you're going to need to be in the town as well, use that lot to do certain things. So I would say that's not the return that you could get. A school.
Not on that highway,
Not really. I mean,
on that road.
so that's not really a good use for that lot and I guess I'd ask Natalie, the one question that gets is what some people say, well, if you can make $1 over 20 years, you made a profit. I've appeared in front of boards that made this argument, but I mean, realistically, nobody, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, it doesn't say that you can't make any return. It's a reasonable return.
Correct. So the argument is reasonable, but obviously you have something it can't sit vacant much longer before the building will start to see problems.
Mhm.
So I guess it's always been used for something like this use. It's not like he's putting in a nightclub or something that was a family establishment. The use during the day is only 4 or 5 people cooking. So it's not a busy use with deliveries a couple days a week by Cisco or Maine.
Not generating traffic, except for special events.
Yeah, and that most likely, if it was a big one, would be by bus.
Right.
So the question is we go through some of these uses. I think this obviously is the best use for that space to generate a return. The question is it sufficient to satisfy the requirement of the state?
If I can ask another question on all this, I believe, I'm sorry, I don't remember everyone's name who's presenting right here. I think Kevin, was it?
Yep.
Yes, you had mentioned that you were potentially open to having more regular hours in the future. Would something like that require an additional use variance, or would that just kind of work with what we're doing tonight?
It would not require an additional use variance.
So
Did you get that, Mike?
Yes, thank you.
I guess my question, Mike, to you is, so it would be considered an A3?
It wouldn't be any different than a low, you're talking about a
an assembly.
Traffic, food and beverage, it wouldn't be any different than something, well, I was gonna say McDonald's, but like a Chow's.
I'm thinking like, but A2 is a bar, A3 is more of a restaurant, so it would be.
Yeah, I mean, you're in the same category. But
Okay,
as far as a local use, and for hours, you'd be looking at something similar to a Chow.
correct.
I don't have more questions about the reasonable return. We don't have to make a decision
No,
at this
I don't.
time. We can move on to the next.
Yeah, the next one, alleged hardship relating to the property in question is unique and does not apply to a substantial portion of the district or neighborhood. My sense is that it's unique to that spot, and it's just that spot.
You really have nothing else compared to except.
There, it is,
There with it.
but that's what it means by unique,
Yeah.
is there's nothing else like it.
And I'd also say, I hate using COVID as an excuse, but it's a reason why the grandfather disappeared. It may not have been Kevin, but somebody could be operating that now.
Bankruptcy trustee in Florida certainly wouldn't have been aware of this potential problem coming up, and because the owner of the property had closed and ended up in
Right.
bankruptcy, you combine those two things with COVID, it's kind of a perfect storm where,
Right.
you know, the property or anyone involved in the Lansing community and, you know, anyone who would have stock in making sure that
I mean, if he had only known that, he might have had an easier time selling it during the pandemic, but perhaps not. I mean, or at least encouraging some kind of activity there to keep it alive. But we don't know that, so, as you said,
my brief experience with the bankruptcy, you know, situation here is it moves very slowly and very complicated. It's hard to communicate and just kind of move through this stuff
is the trustee not here in New York State?
in Florida.
Oh, well, that makes it more difficult.
My attorney is, Nate has been through this with, I believe I'm the fourth potential buyer of this property. And everybody struck out for different reasons. This is the first time anybody's actually got to this point and found this issue that we brought up. And I had a conversation with Mike and then brought in George and started working.
Certainly, nobody has anyone come to the village prior to Kevin about this property
Not that I can
since it closed? I'm not aware of any.
remember.
I'm not aware of anything. Well, and I don't think that it would have, you know, at least what we've heard from the neighbors is that they'd rather see something happening there than have it become derelict.
Yeah, the answer is C, the next point on the thing, doesn't alter the character of the neighborhood.
That's a good question. And we always ask that even in any variance, just in an area variance, is if it's going to change the neighborhood. I can't say that I expect that it would change the neighborhood. It will certainly show activity there. That in itself is a change. But I don't think it alters the character of that area. The building's already there. I mean, what are your thoughts?
I agree with you. There's been a restaurant there as long as I have been in the county. I mean, it's not going to change anything. Yeah, and it's an entity that's been there for years and years and years over different types of owners and functions all having to do with food. It doesn't change the character.
And Mike, what about you?
Yeah, I don't want to define the character of an area based on how it was during the pandemic. Like that's that's a very dangerous precedent to establish there. So
Did you say that again? I didn't quite get that.
oh, I was saying that I don't want to say that the character of a neighborhood is how it was during the pandemic, because that would be a very dangerous precedent
right.
to establish. So
Right.
it's been the character way before the pandemic. That is what I view as the character of the area. There is no change here.
Okay, thanks. All right, well, I think we dealt with C. Then D is the alleged hardship has not been self-created. It's hard to sort of get the chicken and egg question resolved here because obviously you came to this after it had closed. And it had closed for reasons not having to do with COVID or yes, having to do with COVID. It was 2019.
Before COVID.
Before COVID, so they had other issues.
But it expired during COVID though, and I feel like what petitioners are arguing is that it wouldn't have expired. Someone would have bought it if not for COVID.
So what the courts say on this prong is what I'll characterize as difficult in this situation, because it expressly says that people that purchase property knowing it's a non-conforming use have a self-created hardship. So I think it would behoove you to have some input from the bankruptcy trustee. I think they're the people that may have a better argument as to this not being self-created.
Because we can't answer that.
Now, in that circumstance, Natalie, and you know more than me, that's one of the reasons why I haven't bought this property.
Yes.
Is because if I buy it,
Yes.
I created this problem because I know that I have this problem. So
Mm.
with me applying for this, wouldn't that, and you tell me if I'm wrong, wouldn't that fit into me applying for it, even though I don't own the property?
But you don't need to buy the property. So to me, it's still a self-created harm because you're choosing to buy a property that needs this variance now. I think COVID, of course, can be discussed, but I think the trustee, the bankruptcy trustee, being that they are from Florida, being that there was COVID, a number of issues there may behoove you as a secondary source.
Makes sense.
So
So-
can we ask for that then, before we close on this, before we
You can certainly ask for added information and then
ask, yeah, and then we can take this up again, because I don't think we're quite ready to make a decision.
So can I ask a couple of questions
Please.
with respect to the trustee? Like the trustee hired Stephen Lipinski, a local broker, to market the property for 2 years. And they had a lot of challenges in trying to sell it. And I'm happy to go to the trustee and ask for whatever would be helpful. But I want to make sure that I am really clear on what you're looking for. Is this just a letter that says that, they think that without this variance, they will be unable to, sell the property, or what specifically are you looking for?
Well, I won't speak on behalf of the board, but I think something along those lines would be beneficial, and reasons as to why the grandfathered use was lost. We know COVID at least shut down catering services through March of 2021. And perhaps ignorance of the Village of Lansing code could be cited as to why nothing happened there. But I do think something from the trustee as to why this harm was not self-created by them would be helpful, because as I see it, Luna is walking into a situation where there is a hardship. So I find it difficult to say it's not then self-created. The trustee assumed was placed in this position where their hands were kind of tied by COVID and their proximity, where
Well,
that argument of a self-created hardship to me rings a little bit more true to the spirit of what that prong is getting to.
So can we just be like really specific about the way that the ownership works? So this property is owned by a corporation named Court Street Property, okay? And the corporation, the stock of that corporation was owned by Jamie Chosky. Jamie Chosky, in his individual capacity, filed a personal bankruptcy in Florida. And so the US trustee, which is appointed by the bankruptcy court, has stepped in as basically the shareholder of this corporation in place of Jamie to make decisions as to, the legal right to transfer ownership of the property, subject to bankruptcy court approval. So technically speaking, the owner of the true owner of the property, the corporation, hasn't actually changed hands. The shareholder has, because of this personal bankruptcy, but the harm, if you will, was caused by the fact that the shareholder went bankrupt. That's the only reason that the property is not continuing, in its current, status today. So when we ask the trustee to say something about how the trustee didn't cause the harm, she's basically going to reply that, she didn't do anything other than to be appointed by a bankruptcy court to manage the estate of an individual who went bankrupt. And it was the bankruptcy ultimately that caused the closure of this business. Yes, that was prolongated as a result of COVID-19 for sure. And I can attest to the fact that, many other people looked at this, but it was a very difficult time to acquire properties. Banks weren't lending money to catering companies. It's only now that we're starting to sort of turn the corner that new opportunities are emerging. And quite frankly, Kevin's one of the largest catering companies in town, so it makes sense that he would look at this. But I just want to be as clear as I can be that from a standpoint of what was the cause of this thing, the cause of the problem was the fact that the previous owner went bankrupt in another state, and everything kind of got drugged down with it. But Kevin, because his contract is expressly contingent upon resolution of this issue as a condition to closing, he doesn't have any obligation to close on this transaction unless this variance is granted. So he hasn't been the one that's caused any of the harm, other than to say, look, we have this building that was literally built as a catering company. I run a catering company. I'd love to be able to step into this operation, but without this variance, I'm unable to do so to date. And so, I think that I can ask the trustee to do anything, but I know just from dealing with her attorney the last couple of years that, they're going to say, well, we don't have anything to do with, this situation. Yeah, I'm sure we can get them to provide a letter of support, but I'm not really sure that I'm clear as to what type of statement you're looking for that would resolve this issue, if that makes sense.
And Nathan, who would stand to benefit or be reimbursed from the sale of this property?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so the way this is working, I would describe it as a three-ring circus. You have a sale of the note and mortgage, and that is being done by Tompkins Community Bank, formerly known as Tompkins Trust Company. And so they were the mortgage holder on the property, and they're selling their interest as a mortgagee under that note and mortgage to Kevin. At the same time, there's what they call an Article 9 sale from a lender down in the Mid-Atlantic region that has a security interest in all of the assets, or not all of the assets, but several of the fixtures, things like important kitchen equipment, large, stuff that you would use in the operation of the catering business. And then finally, you have the equitable interest in the property, which results as this corporation that the trustee controls down in Florida. And so what we're basically doing is buying the note and mortgage and then turning around and saying, now we're the lender. We've stepped into the shoes of Tompkins Trust Company. We want you to tender a deed in lieu of foreclosure. So instead of forcing us to foreclose upon you, bankruptcy trustee, we want you to give us a deed because you have no right to the property because we hold the mortgage on the property. And then concurrently, we're going to this Article 9 lender and saying, hey, you were the equipment financier. We want you to give us a bill of sale to all the equipment so we can clean up all of the liens and encumbrances and create a nice, clear picture where Kevin can operate his catering business on a going forward basis. And so the short answer is the people that stand to benefit from the proceeds are very specifically three people: Tompkins Trust Company, the bankruptcy trustee, and this Article 9 lender. Those are the main beneficiaries of the monies that are paid. And I'm happy to provide more information on that as necessary.
Can I ask? Go on.
I was going to say, it seems like that would be where the hardship would come from, is if, like was explained, if you're asking for a certain amount of money for as is, but you cannot sell it because of that those are the people that stand to have the hardship, because they would not be able to get the money back with the reimbursement of the money at full value. Did I explain that correctly? If someone can't use it for what it is set up for now, like George had said, you got to come in and bulldoze it down. So you're buying $300,000 for a plot of land. instead of the value there. So that would seem to me, correct me if I'm wrong, they would seem to me that would be the one that would be the hardship.
And Mike, another way to say that is that the party who stands to lose the most, if this variance is not granted, is not Kevin. It's actually Tompkins Trust Company, because they're going to have a very, very
Hard
difficult
time selling.
time in recovering, the proceeds of under their mortgage.
And I suggested that they get Kevin the variance, and Nate said, you said that they wouldn't want to do that. And I didn't know, there was a reason why.
I think that might be,
It's been a challenge communication wise between all these parties. I've been, CC'd mostly, and it's been challenging.
my point, and the board can take it or leave it, is just that Kevin does not have to buy a property with a non-conforming use.
Correct.
Therefore, him seeking the variance is self-created hardship. That's my point. The case law supports that, but I understand there are a lot of things happening in this case, so.
So if the trustee was the one filing this application, I feel like it would pass all these tests easily because they've been trying to sell it for 2 years, so they can't get a reasonable economic return otherwise. The hardship not self-created because it's not their fault, it expired. And the character and uniqueness would be the same. Does that seem possible in any way or accurate? I should ask our attorney. Like,
I would assume the applicant can be changed. Mike?
You're talking about the same process, but just a different application. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
because then they wouldn't have
Probably
that
the
hardship
exact
issue.
same application with just a different name on it.
Because I feel like my read of this part of the village code is that they would pass easily if that was the case, while the Natalie's point of what the case law supports does seem to be very valid to me.
What about a letter that would, come from the trustee or the trustees council just saying, the trustee in her capacity as trustee is joining the application?
Would that
I
work?
think that would be sufficient.
Would that work?
So
Can you restate this so that we all get what we're asking here? That the trustee would also be on the application
Yes,
along with Kevin.
yes. So they won't need to resubmit the application. The trustee would just write a letter that she's joining in the application.
Does that
It will still be over to
obligate
another
her?
meeting. But
We still would have to have another meeting, yeah. But does that obligate
Vote
the
on it.
He
trustee?
represents the sale, I think, so.
And as I'm saying, shouldn't the trust company also join as an applicant and the Title IX, because they're the ones that stand to gain.
I think the trustee at this point, since as Nate said, and correct me if I'm wrong, sorry, Attorney Cook, that the trustee is the one holding the shares of the corporation that owns the land. Is that correct, Nate?
correct.
So I think then the trustee should be the one that joins the application or takes over the application in whole. It could be a letter of joining or just taking over, whichever, but I think the trustee is the one that has the best, as Mike pointed out, Mike Powell pointed out, meets the test.
The reason it's easier to join is that the trustees in Florida and the trustees council at Holland and Knight, a very large firm, also in Florida, doesn't have any knowledge of New York law and doesn't want to get involved in sort of New York stuff. And I'm sure they'll be supportive because it's our hope, or at least it was our hope, that if this meeting was successful, we were going to file a motion in bankruptcy court tomorrow to have the court approve the sale. So, I'm certain that they'll do whatever they can to move this along, but I would like to try to make it as little work as possible for the trustee, knowing that the trustee has very limited resources, is an out of state and, doesn't want to take on a lot of extra work. And so one of the questions I guess I'm asking is, assuming that, we write a letter that, the trustee agrees to or something along those lines, what's a reasonable time frame to go back to her and let her know when this could potentially be approved? Because, we're at the stage now where, the court has the 21-day, period has run. The court is willing to, approve of the sale of the property, and we'd hate to do anything that's going to substantially delay this process for a couple of different reasons. One of which, any sort of delay makes things more difficult for the trustee. She's been trying to sell this property for a long time. And to say that there are tensions around, how long it's taken would be an understatement. Two, I think that, Kevin certainly would like to get his catering company up and going sooner rather than later, given that, graduation is around the corner and there's a short seasonal sort of time frame for operating his business. And three, we're under tremendous pressure with Tompkins Trust Company, who's also wanted to close on this transaction as soon as possible. So any sort of delay makes things more tenuous and risks the likelihood of the transaction moving forward. So that's why I'm just sort of asking, given all that, what's a reasonable time frame to anticipate when, assuming we get a letter of joinder, what that could look like from your standpoint, respectively, I mean.
I don't know how much time you would need, Nathan, but
To get the letter,
to get the letter.
that could be probably very quick, couldn't it, through email, or
Probably
Tomorrow.
I'm looking at the earliest of when
we could have another meeting?
we could have another meeting, and that all depends on everyone's free, and that would be the 3rd.
Yeah, because the planning board meets next Tuesday, right? On a Tuesday. So the next time we could meet would be May 3rd. Would that work?
It's 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
It puts us out of contract, right, Nate?
Correct.
Yeah.
When does the contract end?
They want to close in 10 days.
10 days from Friday, am I wrong?
Correct.
So they
Friday or this?
want it off their books and make it Kevin's problem.
Yeah, this is something, don't feel pressure from them in that regard, because if 2 weeks I think is a totally reasonable amount of time for you guys to get back together and us to get you all the info. So we've been doing our absolute best to work with these guys. If they can't wait another week, I'm doing my best. So I think that's reasonable.
Well, we're all trying to be reasonable. I mean, could we do Wednesday, the 27th? Does that give us time? Does that give you time to advertise a meeting?
No, I can't.
No, okay,
I'm not free that night.
you're not free, all right. Yeah, we need to have you. So May 3rd, it looks like.
How's that work for you, Natalie?
Yeah, I'll be coming in from New York City, but I'll make it.
Good.
How everyone else on the board?
I'm okay. I'd be okay.
May
Are you
3rd,
open, Mike?
Tuesday.
Yes.
Sorry.
May 3rd, the Tuesday evening?
Yes,
Yes.
Same time?
at 7.
Okay. Is it, and the only reason I'm asking this is for our own planning purposes. Is it fair to say that meeting will be ministerial in the sense of if the trustee does join in the application, that, it's likely to be granted? Only because, if that's the case, we may start to take, measures to try to move towards closing in the interim, just so we, don't delay this any more than it needs to be.
I mean, I can't pre-promise how I will vote for not looking bad, but I mean, would have been happy to approve today if it weren't for our attorney pointing out the whole self-created thing, which I'm really glad she did, because we wanted to be all above board. But I don't see any reason why I would vote against this in 2 weeks. And I can't speak for the board members either, but.
Well,
I don't either.
Mike, what about you?
I was prepared to vote tonight.
Oh, I don't.
Not a problem. So if we
I have a vote in.
get that letter ASAP,
Yeah, I think if we get all our ducks in a row.
we're ready to move.
Can you pass a contingent resolution?
No, I don't think so.
can you guys do an email consent?
No.
We have to meet, and only those of us who are actually present can vote. That's the new New York rule, I guess, if we're not, isn't that right? Mike can't
Yes.
vote. So the 3 of us will be here, but.
Can we write like non-binding letter saying we are in support of this and that we're hope to see it come to fruition?
I
would
wouldn't
be-
do that, but Nate, are you looking to give, who are you looking to give some assurances to? Because you could also just share this video.
I think it's to me. This is a cash purchase. I refinance afterwards. That's the only way to get it through. So,
Yes.
you know, I'm happy to be able to do that. That being said, I don't.
The board has been quite candid with their thoughts here. I haven't heard, I think I'm the only one that has pointed out some.
Well, that's why you're
deficiencies. So-
here. That's why we have you, because we,
Voice of reason.
well, just the voice of the important details that we didn't know about. So that's why
Yeah,
it's important.
much deeper than,
Then I would
Yeah.
have, yeah.
Use variance is not easy.
No, that's the problem.
I mean, I've known that.
But you
No.
gotta
You
say-
gotta hit- It's not even a balancing like an area. It's all or nothing.
Yeah.
So it's hard.
Right.
So we agreed you could get a quorum on the third?
Yes,
you know,
we'll be
I'll
here. The truck doesn't hit us. God, take care of yourselves now. Don't anybody get sick.
Is there anything else that you'd like to see other than that letter?
I think the letter is the most important thing at this point.
One comment, just to go back, if we were to move ahead and decide to close, would that affect the ability to get that with the addition of the trustee?
Sorry.
If we were to,
Oh, if you close in the interim,
correct.
then you would be the owner. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. I just-
Definitely a self-created hardship.
Yeah, yeah.
I can be clear with,
No, I think
The parties.
he's doing you favors.
If they understand that everything's held up to this one detail,
They understand they want it off.
in good faith, we intend to have this finished.
So
that's all I could ask, so. I
Yeah,
appreciate your
yeah.
time.
I mean, it's hard because we want to make sure we do this correctly and I think Mike, this belongs in. your book. And I personally want to see something going on up there. But, you know, that's my bias. I ate there when it was the Golden Garter.
Yeah, me too.
So one other quick question, just to slice and dice. Natalie, I heard what you said about don't close in the interim. If there wasn't a closing and we waited till May 3rd, to actually close following, receipt in hand, would there be any objection from the board as to early, occupancy or use of the premises to start to get it ready for, for Kevin's, transition in the near future, knowing that we're a couple weeks away?
That's
for you.
my question.
Yeah, that's a Mike question.
The building's not condemned, so the building's not structurally unsound, so it really can't, as long as you're not staging events or whatnot, there's nothing that I can really do about it. So to answer your question, I didn't really answer.
We can clean the carpets. That's what you're saying.
Friday night.
If you're looking for a demo permit or any type of permit, I would need it the same thing that you're getting for the BZA. I would need permission from the actual owner for you to be able to do that, and then I can go ahead and grant a permit. Does that help any?
Can the trustee make him an agent?
Oh, yeah. Well, the letter, it says you're, as long as I have that, yeah.
We wouldn't do anything permitted anyway. We would just go in there and,
Chase the rats out.
yeah, well, no rats, but yeah. Clean the carpets or start popping.
Condemned or anything like that. So, yes, like, as long as I have something that states that you are the agent from the owner, and by all means, you can.
Great.
All right, then.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your patience.
Thank you so much for your time, everybody.
Yeah, and cross our fingers.
One more step down. It's been a complicated.
Yeah, I get hearing the ownership issue. You
Yeah,
know,
sorry we
have-
couldn't get this the whole way done tonight. It would have been great to walk out with that, but
Yeah. Then we want to be nice to our local bank, right?
Try.
Now that they've gone through their name change and their new image.
No, they were really pressuring Kevin to close.
Yeah.
I said exactly what Natalie just said, that if I close and I don't have a chance to say no, there's
Yeah.
that's be bad.
The trustee is your best friend at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, well, cozy up to the long distance to the trustee and take care of that, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Anytime. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks for your time, everyone.
Thank you. So we're on thing, which is to approve our, we have this resolution.
We're probably holding open the public.
Oh, right, we need to close the public hearing. Can I have a?
I would hold it open.
Leave it open.
No, leave it open.
That's right, we hold it open, sorry. 2 weeks from now, all right,
You can do the minutes and then you can do other business, which would be.
that resolution, all right. So did everyone see the minutes? Did you understand my question in the minutes?
There's a typo in there, but I
There
don't
was-
know if I can remember it where it was.
It was, just had a question. Hold on, and I sent it to you, but then. Oh, it was on the second page, Mike, page 2, and the paragraphs aren't numbered, but go down one, it's in the second main second big paragraph that starts with Scott again reminded everyone. If the BZA agrees with Scott's interpretation, then the stop work order goes into effect. Agreeing with Scott and removing the stop work order is not an option, because that would be changing the village code. Wouldn't it be disagreeing with Scott, not agreeing? I mean, if we went against your decision, we couldn't do that because that would have been going against the village code, right? So the way I read this is that agreeing isn't the right. Please enlighten me.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember how
But I'm trying to, the situation was that you were interpreting the village code and you had to have the stop work order.
it was.
We had to agree with that. If we didn't agree with it, we would have been overturning your decision, therefore going against the zoning code, which we're not allowed to do.
There's something there though that I can't.
Am I missing
It was like
something?
There was like a three-way option there that, I'll tell you what, let's hold these minutes over.
Okay, because I
Let
just,
me go back and take a look.
okay,
Yeah, this was 6 months ago. I don't remember what we were discussing.
I just remember the issue that we couldn't vote against Mike.
Right.
We were really,
Zoom to look back.
we were kind of between a rock and a hard place, because if we went against Mike's decision and let the stop work order, lift the stop work order,
Oh, if you agreed with me,
that it was
And
correct.
That's
then
correct.
remove to the stop
Yeah.
work order.
removing the stop work order would not be an option.
Right,
That's what it is.
It could
You
be
can't do
worded better.
both.
Yeah,
Okay.
couldn't
You
do
can't
both.
agree with you and remove the stop work
Yeah,
order.
that was it.
It's agree with Mike and leave the stop work over, or disagree with Mike. and
okay.
remove the stop.
Well, do we want to approve them with that verbal change, or do you want to?
Think of some better way to.
I would maybe add agreeing with Mike and simultaneously removing the stop work order is not an option. I mean, it says the same thing.
Mhm.
Now that it's explained, I understand the sentence.
Agreeing with Scott and. Not removing the, see, 'cause I,
See, I think what, the way I read it is the agreeing was, it should have been overruling you. Overruling Scott to remove the stop work order is not an option. Right?
No,
mm-mm.
no, he's saying that you cannot both agree with Mike, but at the same time
Remove the stop work order, right, because that would
Yeah.
change the zoning
Because that
law.
would be incongruent.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
decisions.
Okay, well,
How about agreeing with Scott while removing the stop work order? Is not an option.
yeah,
That works.
that would work.
Put so, instead of and why, just put in while.
Wow, wow, yeah, sure, okay. That, thank you. I was puzzling over that.
Everybody good with that? Mike, you see what we ended up doing there?
Yes, that all sounds good to me.
It sounds nitpicky, but the concept was, I was having trouble with that.
So it does
Okay.
make it more clear. Thank you, Lynn.
All right, would anyone like to move the minutes? Do you have other comments?
I guess not. I thought there was one word in there that needed changing, but
You're good at finding those, and I didn't find anything else, but
Yeah, I didn't see anything either.
that was such a long meeting. Oh, that meeting.
OV. Oh, I'd rather.
Off instead of or something?
I can agree with it the way it is because
Okay.
anyone reading it would know that it was not the right word.
Oh, all right.
It didn't change the
Then you
sentence.
can go through it and let Mike know.
Yeah,
Some
maybe I'll
later
do
date.
that.
All right, could I have a motion to adopt the minutes?
I moved.
John moves the second.
I'll second.
Roy seconds. All those in favor? Aye. Minutes adopted. Okay, so we have a little extra business here, which is the tax map changing. Is that
What we
what's
did-
happening with these resolutions?
When we originally did the mall variances.
Right.
All we were allowed to know is, okay, it was designated as parcel A, parcel B, and so on.
Now they have numbers,
Now they have tax
numbers.
map numbers.
Okay,
And Natalie has taken them and kind of, instead of us going through every one of them and changing them. she's gone across that and made sure.
this is just an aside. I was talking to a friend of mine, to Susan Brock.
Yes.
And I said, you just would not have believed this meeting where we had to approve every single variance. And she said, my God, why didn't you just put them all together? I said, but there were side yard setbacks and front yard setbacks and parking setbacks. She said, "Yeah, bundle."
Basically, in all the resolutions where you say parcel A, you're basically substituting. what-
Parcel 47.1-1.
All the way down through.
Okay, so they got their
All
numbers.
45 of them.
All 45 of them. Those were two marathons, two of them.
Yeah.
This is fine. Okay, so. we
But I
just-
mean, good work came out of it though, now that the Cayuga Med is moving in there and all that. So
Yeah,
I'll say that we
yeah.
did very good work with that.
Yes, here. So we need to adopt this, pass this resolution, and this will be a resolution number what? 2022 number,
2022-02.
02, our second resolution of the year. Okay, so could I have a motion to adopt this resolution? All right, John, and second?
I'll second.
Roy, thank you. John moved and Roy seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So the,
It's easier.
yeah, oh,
Figured we all wanted to get home tonight.
yeah,
Okay, real quick, it was very beneficial to have that moved up to May 3rd, and the reason being is by taking a step back here,
uh-huh,
the planning board next week, the proposals that we're going to be on, they can't make it. So what I've done is there are two, and you and I had spoken about this once. There are two, they'll get classified as minor subdivisions,
oh,
coming to the planning board next Tuesday.
is one of them Michelle's?
Each one of those is going to require an area variance.
Oof,
So
Yeah,
it
okay.
works out well that it takes two meetings for the planning board. They'll review it. They'll say that it requires a variance. It'll come to you folks and then go right back to the planning board.
Okay,
It works out really well.
okay, so we can do that on the 3rd?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have.
Is that Michelle? That knows?
Yes, that's one.
Request, yeah.
The other one is Jan Ormsby.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's right. We talked about that one. It's directly opposite Cherry Road on North Trip Hammer, and she wanted to subdivide into two lots and one wasn't big enough to accept it.
Yeah.
But apparently someone has designed, an engineer has,
Yes, it is
Designed a
designed in
system.
an area where they can actually fit in a septic system on the other one, which is one of the criteria that you folks suggested to her. Right. She's gone out to do that.
yeah,
So now it's basically an area variance. And it's similar with
Michelle.
her lot's a little bit bigger.
But how much smaller is the second lot from the conforming size
Which
of Michelle?
Michelle's.
Yeah, I mean, obviously one is big enough and the other isn't big enough. Right?
She's, the one lot will be a conforming lot and the other lot will be short. really not that much.
Couple thousand feet maybe or something, couple
I
thousand.
think it
square.
was 6%, if I'm remembering it correctly.
Wow.
That was Jan's, yeah, that was on North Trip Hammer. The one on Cuga Heights.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the one on Cuga Heights is somewhat close to that.
But it's a similar situation. So the issue is that we've got two requests for subdivisions and both are going to have non-conforming lot sizes for it. But one was willing to wait until sewer is provided. I mean, that's what Michelle said, that she would wait for sewer service to come down Cuba Heights Road
She's looking to sell the one conforming lot
and then hold on to the other one
and then hold on to the other one and possibly sell that
if the sewer comes down.
does come through.
And that could be a while.
Yes, if or when the sewer comes.
Yeah. Could be quite a while. These things are really slow moving.
Unfortunately, I would have rather seen it so that these were spread out on different meetings because you have the same type of variance, so it's kind of puts you in a spot a little
I
bit.
know,
Yeah.
I know,
So
same issues.
that's what we've got coming up.
Okay. All right, then, so Karen's on hold for the next meeting, and is there anything else? And the 239 didn't have any, the county didn't say any.
Always would be in the 30 days.
Natalie did a great job on this.
Yes. Thank you so much.
No, that's.
All you ever wanted to know about zoning.
This is the best book.
Oh, who wrote it?
All you ever wanted to know about zoning. The New York Planning Federation.
Oh, they're good. Yeah,
It's great. It has everything in it. I highly recommend.
guess I should do that.
Put that on my reading, ready?
Put that on my reading
I'll
list.
color it for you, like I did here.
Page where you can color just to relax.
Yeah, there's some blank pages to do.
Take notes.
Yes, yes.
I'm taking notes. All right. So, Mike, do you have anything you want to add while you're out there in the ether?
No, I think we all did great. So go us.
Everything's going okay with you?
Yes, everything is going very well. Thanks for asking.
Okay, all right.
And real quick before you close it out, we, as you can see, we are missing Pat. We do need to look for another BZA.
Yeah, and I know of someone who was interested. She contacted me. Her name is Renata Ballard. She was on the zoning board of appeals in the city of Ithaca. So she has a history with BZAs. She's up in the East Point neighborhood.
Okay.
As is our nominated trustee candidate, Susan Ainsley. So I know she's interested. I've talked to her on the phone once about it. I think somehow or other we connected with each other and I don't know, she said she wanted something because she travels a lot in the winter and she didn't want something with a lot of big responsibilities such as, planning board or something like that that meets regularly. And if she's away all winter, and we're not meeting by Zoom anymore, that could be a problem.
Well, let's hope that changes.
That may change.
Okay.
So that's just one person of interest. And certainly if any of you know of anyone who might be
Are there
interested,
any former planning board members?
well, bring them back in again. They feel like they've done their duty. Yeah, so I miss Pat, but he's moved to a higher plane.
Just a different plane.
Just
not
a
higher
different plane. Well, stepwise, that next thing you know, he'll be a trustee. I doubt it. No, that's good. I'm glad he's gone to the planning board. So he's an alternate right now, right? Though he's not a full planning
No,
board.
He's full.
Oh, he is.
Yeah.
He was approved. Okay. Excellent. So yeah, we are looking. And Bill Troy told us that we could not have alternates on a board of zoning appeals. I remember that really clearly. He said you can't have an alternate on a
I remember
BZA.
that.
You remember that? So I don't know if that's actually, and you've
I'll look
ever
into
heard
it.
that. Would you look into that? That'd be great because it would be nice to have another member, full member and an alternate so that we're not down a person. And Mike, if you know anybody, keep your ears out, let me know.
Will do.
Okay, well, in that case, I think we don't have any more business. Right? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll do that.
Second, by John. All those in favor? Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you.